the players, I'm going to be like frank and honest and transparent. We're not worried. All the power is in our hands. We have never had a moment like this where there's been so much momentum, where there's been so much investment, demand of our sports. And I'm just kind of like upset, frustrated, all of us. And in a lot of ways, just like disgusted with the W and how they're handling this and their lack of value, their lack of worth for us, their lack of even trying to attempt to move the needle with us. Like, we know what is on the horizon. We know in 2 years our TV deal is up and there's a new TV deal that's going to come that they're not even putting on the table for us. The percentages, if we actually told you the percentages of what they're giving, that they're like sending to us.
But attendance alone doesn't tell the full story. To understand what really happened in Philadelphia, you have to look at ticket pricing. Reports suggest some fans entered the arena for as little as $26, meaning 2 people could attend for just over $50. There's nothing wrong with that strategy. For a startup league like Unrivaled, accessibility is smart. Lower prices create buzz, fill seats, and generate social media momentum. But that model is fundamentally different from sustained premium demand. Compare that to WNBA playoff games featuring Caitlin Clark. Those tickets sold out instantly at significantly higher prices. That's not just volume, that's value. One fills seats. The other proves scarcity and pricing power. Then there's television. If over 21,000 fans attended in person, how many watched at home? Unrivaled's average TV audience reportedly sits around 20,000 viewers. That suggests a substitution effect. Many of the people in the building were likely the same people who would have watched on TV. That matters when evaluating growth. Attendance that replaces viewership doesn't expand the pie, it just shifts it. Part 5, rephrase 500 plus words. The online reaction revealed something deeply telling about the current state of women's basketball discourse. Fans didn't just celebrate, they contextualized. Comparisons flooded timelines. Reality checks followed. One user pointed to the 55,000-fan Iowa football stadium game. Not a playoff, not a professional league showcase. A college exhibition. That single example dismantled the idea that Clark's impact is overstated. Another noted that if Clark played in a 25,000-seat arena, she would sell it out every night. The limiting factor isn't demand, it's capacity. Indiana Fever games aren't capped by interest, they're capped by building size. Philadelphia's history as a supportive sports city also came up. Context matters. A strong turnout in one market doesn't automatically translate league-wide. The crowd was real. The excitement was real. But sustainability requires more than moments. It requires demand that persists across cities, price points, and seasons. Ignoring that distinction doesn't help the league grow. Understanding it might.
History was made at Unrivaled last night, and we missed it. Shame on you. Shame on you. And most importantly, shame on you. Unrivaled broke attendance records, and we missed it. You'd think that fans of Unrivaled would be boasting about their attendance record, right? Gleefully cheering about how amazing the game was. But the sickos out there, they had to bring up Caitlin Clark because that's all they can do. We're going to get into that momentarily, but before we do, Natasha Cloud offering a stern warning to WNBA owners across the league. In fact, owners were trembling in their shoes, listening.
But attendance alone doesn't tell the full story. To understand what really happened in Philadelphia, you have to look at ticket pricing. Reports suggest some fans entered the arena for as little as $26, meaning 2 people could attend for just over $50. There's nothing wrong with that strategy. For a startup league like Unrivaled, accessibility is smart. Lower prices create buzz, fill seats, and generate social media momentum. But that model is fundamentally different from sustained, premium demand. Compare that to WNBA playoff games featuring Caitlin Clark. Those tickets sold out instantly at significantly higher prices. That's not just volume, that's value. One fills seats. The other proves scarcity and pricing power. Then there's television. If over 21,000 fans attended in person, how many watched at home? Unrivaled's average TV audience reportedly sits around 20,000 viewers. That suggests a substitution effect. Many of the people in the building were likely the same people who would have watched on TV. That matters when evaluating growth. Attendance that replaces viewership doesn't expand the pie. It just shifts it. The online reaction revealed something deeply telling about the current state of women's basketball discourse. Fans didn't just celebrate, they contextualized. Comparisons flooded timelines. Reality checks followed. One user pointed to the 55,000-fan Iowa football stadium game. Not a playoff, not a professional league showcase. A college exhibition. That single example dismantled the idea that Clark's impact is overstated. Another noted that if Clark played in a 25,000-seat arena, she would sell it out every night. The limiting factor isn't demand, it's capacity. Indiana Fever games aren't capped by interest, they're capped by building size. Philadelphia's history as a supportive sports city also came up. Context matters. A strong turnout in one market doesn't automatically translate league-wide. The crowd was real. The excitement was real. But sustainability requires more than moments. It requires demand that persists across cities, price points, and seasons. Ignoring that distinction doesn't help the league grow. Understanding it might.
This one either. So maybe we stop giving her credit for women's basketball and pay the players. On the contrary, everywhere women's basketball is, Caitlin Clark's there. Everywhere women's basketball explodes, Caitlin Clark's fingerprints are all over it. Everywhere women's basketball attendance records are being broken, Caitlin Clark, yeah, you guessed it, is the reason for that. Whether she's in the building playing.
To address this honestly, we have to talk about the Caitlin Clark factor directly, without deflection or discomfort. The argument being made is that the Philadelphia attendance record proves women's basketball can succeed without her presence. That claim sounds empowering, but it ignores 15 years of documented history. From 2009 to 2023, the WNBA failed to produce a single game that reached 1 million television viewers. Not one. Attendance crowds of 7,000 were celebrated as victories. 8,000 fans triggered optimism. Those were the benchmarks for success. Now compare that to what we're seeing today. Attendance records are falling. Television viewership is surging. Media rights deals are expanding. Corporate sponsors are suddenly paying attention. That shift did not happen gradually over a decade. It happened rapidly. And it happened alongside Caitlin Clark's emergence as a cultural phenomenon. Her 55,000 fan attendance at Iowa wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a novelty. It was a proof of concept. It showed that women's basketball could command stadium-level demand when given the right combination of talent, storytelling, and visibility. That moment didn't just benefit Clark. It recalibrated expectations for the entire sport. Unrivaled's ability to even attempt a 21,000-seat venue depends on that recalibration. Before Clark, the idea of betting on that scale would have been laughed off as financially reckless. After Clark, it became plausible. That doesn't diminish other players. It doesn't deny their talent. It simply acknowledges reality. Transformative figures change markets. They expand the ceiling. And pretending otherwise doesn't empower the league. It blinds it.
Fans aren't the one that broke the women's sports attendance. And you know the CC not letting that slide. Not letting that slide. Oh, you mean this 55,000 right here with CC, and it was one game, not two games? Nice try though. Oh yeah, that's right. The exhibition in a football stadium, 55,000. See, it's stuff like this. Random person makes false statement, CCFC corrects random person, oh my gosh. That fan base is so racist. And
what the public saw was raw, unfiltered, and intentionally confrontational. Natasha Cloud stared straight into the camera and dropped an F-bomb aimed directly at league executives, calling it a stern warning to WNBA ownership during ongoing CBA negotiations. On the surface, it looked like strength, confidence, power, a player speaking truth to authority without fear. But when you strip away the theatrics and examine the situation honestly, something else becomes clear. This wasn't leverage, it was desperation dressed up as bravado. And that distinction matters. Cloud's message was simple and aggressive. We will not move until you move. It sounds defiant, even righteous. But statements like that only work when both sides have comparable bargaining power. Right now, they don't. Not even close. The numbers tell a story that completely contradicts the tone of Cloud's warning, and ignoring those numbers doesn't make them disappear. The WNBA has reportedly operated at a loss for 28 consecutive years. That is not a typo. Nearly 3 decades without profitability. That reality fundamentally changes the context of any labor negotiation. This is not a league sitting on massive untapped revenue, hoarding profits, and refusing to share. This is a league that has survived through investment, subsidies, and long-term belief rather than financial success. Now look at what is actually being offered. The proposed deal would give players close to 15% of total league revenue, push star salaries beyond $1 million annually, and raise the average salary to roughly $500,000. By any historical standard, and even by global professional sports standards, that is not a disrespectful offer from a league that has never turned a profit. Yet Cloud publicly framed the proposal as insulting. That's where the disconnect becomes impossible to ignore. You can argue that players deserve more. You can argue that women's sports have been undervalued historically. Both can be true, but negotiating as if the league is flush with cash and refusing to budge until ownership moves first ignores economic reality. And in negotiations, perception without leverage is not power, it's risk. The danger here is narrative inflation. When player leaders frame compromise as exploitation and realistic offers as disrespect, they box themselves into a corner. If the league genuinely cannot afford what's being demanded, then the outcome isn't justice. It's stagnation, lockouts, or contraction. None of those benefit players long-term. Cloud's speech resonated emotionally, but emotionally satisfying rhetoric does not pay salaries. Sustainable growth does. And sustainability requires honesty about where the league actually stands, not where people wish it were.
Slopes. You guys see the W360 shirt where it's like the rainbow wig and then the septum ring? Yeah, it was a lot of those. A lot of those in there. It doesn't stop. Oh, there's Caitlin in a football stadium. Caitlin still holds the record, plus the overall attendance average. Stop with the BS. It was a good night for Unrivaled. Again, they just can't celebrate their good night. They always got to drag Cece into that just for reality to come in and smack them across the face. Oops, looked like they did. Oh, there's Mick Talk Soup. Shout out to Mick. Ticket prices, big difference. Yeah, I heard that a couple got in there for $52. That's what I heard. $52 for 2 tickets. Crazy work.
What the public saw was raw, aggressive, and deliberately confrontational. Natasha Cloud looked straight into the camera, dropped an F-bomb, and framed it as a stern warning to WNBA owners during ongoing CBA negotiations. On the surface, it felt powerful, a player unafraid to challenge authority. But when you move past the emotion and actually examine the context, the moment reads very differently. This was not strength built on leverage. It was urgency disguised as confidence, and that distinction is critical. Cloud's message was blunt. We will not move until you move. That line only works when both sides are operating from equal power. Right now, they are not. The hard financial reality undermines the posture entirely. The WNBA has reportedly lost money for 28 straight years. Nearly 3 decades without turning a profit fundamentally changes how negotiations work. This isn't a league hoarding massive revenue while underpaying labor. It's a league that has survived through investment subsidies and long-term belief in growth rather than financial success. Despite that, the current proposal on the table is substantial. Players would receive close to 15% of league revenue. Star players could earn over $1 million annually, and the average salary would approach $500,000. In the context of a league that has never been profitable, calling that offer disrespectful isn't a power move. It's a risky one. Negotiations don't respond to moral pressure alone. They respond to leverage, and leverage comes from revenue, not rhetoric. This backdrop collided almost immediately with what happened in Philadelphia, where Unrivaled drew 21,490 fans, the largest regular season crowd in professional women's basketball history. The reaction online was instant and predictable. A loud segment rushed to claim the moment as proof that women's basketball doesn't need Caitlin Clark. The message was simple. See? The league can draw crowds without her. Stop crediting one player and just pay everyone. The problem is that argument collapses under even minimal scrutiny. Attendance doesn't exist in isolation. It's shaped by momentum, media attention, pricing strategies, and cultural relevance, all of which have exploded in the post-Caitlin Clark era. From 2009 through 2023, the WNBA didn't record a single game with 1 million TV viewers. Crowds of 7,000 or 8,000 were celebrated as major wins. That was the reality for over a decade. The explosion we're seeing now didn't arrive slowly. It arrived suddenly, and it arrived alongside Clark's rise. Her 55,000-fan Iowa Stadium game wasn't a novelty. It was proof that demand for women's basketball could reach levels previously thought impossible. That moment didn't just benefit her career. It reset expectations across the entire sport. Unrivaled's confidence to even attempt a 21,000-seat venue exists because that ceiling was raised. Dig deeper into the Philadelphia game and the story becomes even clearer. Ticket prices were reportedly as low as $26, making it accessible and promotional by design. That's a smart strategy for a startup league trying to build buzz, but it's very different from sustained demand at premium pricing. Compare that to WNBA playoff games featuring Caitlin Clark, where tickets sold out instantly at much higher prices. That's the difference between filling seats and proving scarcity. Then there's television. Unrivaled's typical TV audience reportedly hovers around 20,000 viewers, meaning many of the fans who attended in person were likely the same people who would have watched at home. That shifts consumption rather than expanding it. The social media reaction ultimately revealed the real divide in women's basketball discourse: emotion versus evidence. Fans pointed out that Clark could sell out 25,000-seat arenas nightly if capacity allowed. The limiting factor isn't interest, it's infrastructure. Philadelphia showing up matters, but context matters more.